You are Locked On Tigers Postcast, part of Locked On Sports Detroit on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hey, long time no see, right? How we doing? It's been a couple of hours since we had a Locked On Tigers postcast, but that's the beauty of a doubleheader. Welcome one, welcome all. I am your host, Jake Riepma. You can follow me or unfollow me on Twitter at Jake_Riepma. And welcome into this live edition of the Locked On Tigers postcast. Game one of the doubleheader went great. 3 runs in the first for the Tigers, 7 scores from Tarek Skubal. Oh man, it was a lot of fun. 8-0. But lo and behold, there was a second game to be played, and the Pirates dominated to the tune of a 10-2 win. We will talk about it. Keider Montero's MLB debut. Some good, some not so good, some lessons to be learned. But overall, we'll break down that start. The offense, well, more of some of the same that we've seen. But to be fair, this offense played pretty well prior to this second game of the doubleheader. Of course, I talked about the 14-run output in Sunday's game against the Blue Jays, and of course, 8 in the first game of the doubleheader, but did not really show up in game number 2. And then we'll tie a bow on the homestand and look ahead to the upcoming road trip. That's all coming up next on this live edition of Locked On Tigers postcast. Welcome everyone in on the YouTube stream, Locked On Sports Detroit. This is your one-stop shop for everything Locked On Detroit, instant reaction analysis following the conclusion of Tigers games in the summer, of course, all season long. Lions games coming up in the fall. Can't wait for that. And Pistons games throughout the course of the NBA season as well. Think of Locked On Sports Detroit as your post-game headquarters. And that's why we thank you for making Locked On Sports Detroit part of your day. And for the real ones that make it your first listen every day, free and available wherever you get your podcasts. And of course, on YouTube, make sure you subscribe today. Doesn't cost you a thing. All part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's show also made possible by my friends, your friends, everybody's friends at eBay Motors. From brakes to exhaust kits and beyond, eBay Motors has over 122 million parts to keep your ride or die alive. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to bring home that big win. Keep your ride or die alive like the Tigers kept my spirit alive in a 4-2 homestand. I was ready to give up on the season at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay guaranteed fit. Only available to U.S. customers. So here we go. We'll start with the big league debut from Keider Montero. And because the first rendition of our Locked On Tigers live postcast after the first game, we ended with some of the comments that Scott Harris made earlier in the week. So yesterday, actually, we will revisit that because I don't feel like we truly got to completely vent together. I think we got more people joining the stream with the later in the evenings. I know it's tough during the day for some. So I want to get back to Scott Harris's comments on a number of different things, including the payroll, Javi Baez, the investment in this team, developing players, everything that he had to say to MLB Network yesterday. Because again, he doesn't talk to any of the hardworking beat writers that cover the Tigers, who all do such a tremendous job, by the way. I think that goes without saying, but we'll mention it anyway. So a couple of people checking in on YouTube. As always, we appreciate that. Matt Wood joining the postcast from TC Pit Spitters home opener. How about that? More baseball. You got to love that. The Traverse City Pit Spitters. I believe that's part of the Northwoods League. I need Matt Wood to confirm that. They used to be the Traverse City Beach Bums, and actually had some good friends that broadcasted for the Traverse City Pit Spitters. So thank you, Matt, for joining us from beautiful Traverse City. I'm heading up north later this summer in the month of July. Can't wait for that. Demetrius McNeil, Cubs couldn't figure out how to score runs against Paul Skenes twice. Yeah, Paul Skenes looked good. That's part of our breakdown today as well. When we talk about the pitching, we will get into the talented rookie phenom Paul Skenes and what he brings to the table for the Pittsburgh Pirates, including that pretty impressive mustache, I might say. That's a mustache that a lot of people would be jealous of. Maybe even Jake Rogers is jealous of that. Today on his birthday, Tigers couldn't get anything going against that guy. Correct. I believe. Let me double check. 6 innings. Yeah, 6 innings, 3 hits, 2 runs. Both of them earned 9 strikeouts for Paul Skenes. He gets the win. He's 2-0. But let's jump over to the other side of the pitching box score. That's where we find Keider Montero in his big league debut, called up to make the spot start in the second part of the doubleheader so that the Tigers pitching rotation could stay intact. And Keider goes 4 1/3, 5 hits, 4 runs, 4 earned runs, 5 strikeouts. But the tough part of that box score is the crooked number under the home runs allowed. He gave up 2 big flies, one of them to the old savvy vet, Andrew McCutchen. I swear, Andrew McCutchen was in MLB The Show PlayStation games when I was playing them as a kid. My goodness. I remember Andrew McCutchen. I don't want to sound like, I'm not calling him old. We'll say he's a savvy vet, and he taught the youngster a lesson with that 3-run homer for the Pirates that gave Pittsburgh the lead in the top half of the third. Because the Tigers, I know there's this is not me giving the offense credit, but they did strike 4-1 in the home half of the second. Akil Baddoo, who, hand up, I fully admit this, I was not extremely ecstatic with the Akil Baddoo call up as opposed to somebody I'm dying to see like Justin Henry Malloy. That would have been awesome. But instead, it's more of the same that we've seen from Akil Baddoo. But to his credit, he gets a sacrifice fly for one of the 2 runs scored. So he had one of the 2 RBI. The other one, a Matt Vierling big fly. That's his 3rd in as many games. So Matt Vierling swinging a hot bat, which is a great thing to see, especially with his versatility. We know how much AJ Hinch loves that versatility. You can put him in the outfield, you can put him in the infield. But Matt Vierling, 1 more hit today in a home run for Vierling. That's his 7th of the season, and it came in the 6th inning off of Paul Skenes. And with the bases empty, unfortunately, so just a solo shot. But 10-2, the final in this one. I thought with Montero, he kind of had some tough luck in that 3rd inning where the McCutchen 3-run home run came, because he had the wimpy infield single that he made a great pitch on. But sometimes baseball is an unlucky game. Now, Joe doubling to center, he got a hold of that with 1 out there. But the Reynolds, that's who it was. Reynolds grounded out to second, and then McCutchen homered to left there. So that said, I think Montero in this start did a great job of riding with what he came with and figuring out a way to get some outs, get some shutdown. And it's not like this Pirates offense is one that's going to strike fear in the opposition, but it wasn't the dazzling debut that I'm sure he hoped for when he scootered into the game into Comerica Park earlier today. But nonetheless, I think he gave his team a fighting chance to win. The offense would have had to show up in a much more significant way than they did, and ultimately, it was a tough day in the second half of this game, because similar to the first one, where the Tigers were just in complete control of this one, once the Pirates took the lead in the 3rd inning with that 3-run bomb from McCutchen, you just felt like, oh boy, maybe it's going to be one of those days. Just given how much success the offense had in the first game, the game before that, it felt like that. Unfortunately, with the names that are on this lineup 1 through 9, those types of games are always hanging in the balance, where you feel like, okay, we run into a hot pitcher like Paul Skenes, and it could be a tough day for the Tigers to manufacture some runs. And all told, it is a 10-2 final. Interestingly enough, we talked about this in the first round of our Locked On Tigers postcast today. If the Tigers lose, we gave so much credit to the Motor City Connect jerseys, or City Connects. They say Motor City on them, but I guess they're known as the City Connect jerseys, for all the wins, that little 4-game win streak that the Tigers went on. Oh, the City Connect jerseys. But now that they lost, Do they take them off? Do they go back to the traditional road grays and the old English D at home? I personally, like I said, the City Connect jerseys grew on me. They really did. And I didn't love them at first. I still wish they would have put some kind of orange color wave into it, some orange trim, maybe mixing it with the electric blue tire tread. But I'm not going to, we've talked about the City Connect jerseys enough. I'm not going to break it all down, but it will be interesting to see. I don't think they're going to wear them in Boston now that they finally fell in defeat in the second half of that doubleheader. But that said, welcome all on YouTube. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. Locked On Sports Detroit. This is your Locked On Tigers postcast. Tigers fall to the Pirates in the second half of the twin bill, win the first one, so they split the 2-game series, and that means both the Tigers and Pirates split the season series at 2 games apiece. Remember, they split at PNC Park earlier this season as well. Seems like the Pirates are always the team that the Tigers play those little mini, I guess you don't even call it interleague anymore, but those mini 2-game series with in the middle of the week early in the season. It's always with the Pirates. But that said, 10-2 in the second game, 8-0 in the first game. We are going to discuss the offense a little bit, and I don't want to run through a boring box score like we've said at length on this program. It's the trying to find the combination between a little bit of game reaction, a little bit of analysis, and then what is going on with this current state of the Detroit Tigers. So we will continue that mantra as we cruise along on this live edition of Locked On Tigers postcast. Don't go anywhere. There's a little YouTube scoreboard. We know when people are leaving. We'll be right back in just a moment. All right, today's show is brought to you by our friends at eBay Motors, who are all about passion, drive, and patience. That's the formula for winning championships, both on the diamond, and it's also what keeps your ride or die alive. You hear that, Tigers? Passion, drive, and patience. We need a little bit of that more in the second game of the doubleheader. But eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. I mean, we're talking about the Motor City Tigers here. Of course, we're talking superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and so much more. So whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. That's the peace of mind I'm talking about. It's not like a Tigers game where if you see them lose 10-2, you get your money back on your ticket. No, with eBay, that's right, eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. All right, offense goes relatively quiet in the second game of the doubleheader, but Matt Vierling, he has been on a tear. Another home run for him. Love seeing that power from the right side of the plate in Matt Vierling. He had the walk-off on Sunday against the Blue Jays. That was great to see. Big 3-run homer in game number 1 against the Pirates, and then part of the offense in the Tigers, or the limited offense that we saw, that solo home run in the 6th inning. Now, we didn't talk about this enough in the opening segment, and that's on me, but I think we can now officially sound the alarm from concern to downright a problem with how bad the bullpen has been as of late. Because today, same exact thing. I mean, this again, the Tigers were fighting an uphill battle. So hear me when I say this. I don't think the bullpen lost the game for the Tigers today, but they certainly didn't give them an opportunity to come back in this game, as the Pirates scored 1 run in the 6th, 2 in the 7th, 1 in the 8th, and 2 more in the 9th. And these are important innings that the bullpen, when you're off, and again, this is broken record territory, so I apologize, but when the offense is as bad as it's been and you get behind early, the bullpen, you got no chance if the bullpen can't get some shutdown innings. And unfortunately for the Tigers, it was another day where you look at Joey Wentz, and this is going to sound like we're snowballing a little bit on Joey Wentz, but 3 more runs in 2 innings. I think it's safe to say that hot start has pretty much gone by the wayside for Joey Wentz, because his ERA in the month of April is above 8. So not good, as they say, because he was a guy that you felt like maybe he was making a comeback, because he had such a difficult year last year. Thought he kind of figured some things out, but it really just hasn't been that case in the month of May. So month of April, ERA under 1. Month of May, ERA above 9. I said 8, but it's actually above 9. Yikes. So 3 more runs given up by Joey Wentz. Will Vest, limited work, just 2/3 of an inning, did not give up a run. Andrew Chafin gave up a run in his 1 inning of work, as well as 3 hits. So it's not like these are cheap runs. I mean, the opposition are barreling up baseballs against the bullpen. And Bo Brisky, sure, it was mop-up time in the 9th, but again, 3 more hits, 2 runs, and before you know it, it turns into a lopsided blowout because the bullpen can't get anybody out. So not good, as they say, and kind of a bummer on the conclusion of the homestand. And I know it's baseball, 162 games. I know how it works. I'm too competitive to, and this is probably a Jake Riepma problem and nobody else's problem, but I just feel like every time you go out, especially when you build some momentum with the first game of this doubleheader against the Pirates, you just seize that momentum, go out and win the second one. And I know they wanted to, but there was kind of some lackadaisical play early on. There was a ball hit down the left field line that I forget who the batter was for the Pirates, but they kind of challenged Riley Green there to throw him out at second, and they couldn't get that done. And so I just feel like it was I'm sorry, not Riley Green, Akil Baddoo. That's my fault all the way. Apologies, because Akil Baddoo was in left field, and there just wasn't that sense of urgency to go sweep a doubleheader. I mean, think of how good a 5-1 homestand sounds. You're above 500. You're hitting the road for a 7-game road trip where the Tigers have actually played pretty well. I mean, they played 500 ball on the road, and that's coming off 4 consecutive losses on the road. So there just felt like there was a real significant, tangible piece of momentum to be had by winning the second game of this doubleheader and sweeping the doubleheader, and how much better a 5-1 road trip, a 5-1 homestand, sounds than a 4-2 homestand. But again, at the whole homestand, you win 4 games in a row. You split the doubleheader with the Pirates, 4-2. We'll take it. 1 game under 500 with the loss today. But that said, yesterday was just I want to say a dark day for Detroit Tigers and their fans, and all of us who crave nothing more than a competitive, competent organization from top to bottom that will do anything to win. That seemed like it was always the mentality, always the approach when Mr. Ilitch was running the team. My formative years growing up and into the Miguel Cabrera era, Justin Verlander, Max Scherzer, David Price, when David Dombrowski was the general manager, the Tigers were known as big spenders, aggressive, and doing anything to win. And if you saw Scott Harris's media time, whatever it is, press, not even a press interview is a better way to put it, with MLB Network, nothing could be further than that notion. And that's what we're going to talk about next, because again, it's on my mind. And the Tigers got blown out in the first game. They blew out the Pirates in the first game, got blown out in the second game. You split the doubleheader. That's all you need to know. Now let's talk about some big picture stuff. That's what we're going to do next. So don't go anywhere. One more segment to go on this doubleheader day, both for the Tigers and for Locked On Tigers Postcast. Back in a moment on Locked On Tigers Postcast. All right, buckle up for this one because we are talking about America's #1 sportsbook. That is a FanDuel. And I'm telling you what, FanDuel has got it figured out because they love new customers. That's right. It's winner take all time in the NBA, the NHL as well, playoffs heating up. We're in the Western Conference and Eastern Conference finals. So I guess I could just say the conference finals, even though the Celtics have already punched their ticket to the NBA finals. The Mavs gagged it away in game 4. They had a chance to sweep the Minnesota Timberwolves, but Karl Anthony Towns and Anthony Edwards had other ideas. So that series still going on. On the ice, you got a 2-2 tie in the series in the Eastern Conference between the Panthers of Florida and, of course, the New York Rangers. On the other side of the bracket, the Western Conference Finals heating up with the Dallas Stars and Edmonton Oilers. Point being, it's crunch time right now, and right now new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 to bet on spreads, money lines, player props, and so much more. Don't take my word for it. You got to visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make every playoff shot count, or regular season for the Major League Baseball fans out there. After all, this is Locked On Tigers postcast. Point being, if you don't have a FanDuel account by now, what are you doing? Get in the game. My goodness. New customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make every playoff shot count. All right, big picture stuff here to wrap up the final segment of the program. I said we might get to it, and it is time because I started to touch on the Scott Harris comments about the payroll, about the state of the team, if you will. And again, I think there's a lot of things to be rubbed the wrong way on. I don't want to make this personal. I just want to call it how I see it as a diehard Tigers fan that is starving for relevancy, starving for an organization to give a what, to invest in both internal prospects and developing players. We all know the importance of that. And unfortunately, the Tigers have, what appears, missed on a couple of one draft picks, Casey Mize and Spencer Torkelson. I hope I'm wrong. There's obviously plenty of time there. But point being, this has been a perpetual rebuild that has been like a hamster running around and going nowhere. A little hamster in the cage, running around in circles, going nowhere. That's what the state of this team has felt over the last decade. And if you're like me as a fan, you're just tired of the repetitive mediocrity without any commitment, without any signs of this is going to change. We are doing our absolute best to change this because, again, I mentioned I'm competitive, but you want your ownership, you want your general manager, the entire organization from top to bottom to just have that burning desire to win. That's all you can ask for as a fan. And obviously, the way athletics work, if there was a perfect approach to winning, every organization would take that. And Scott Harris has a proven system. He believes this is the way to build a sustainable winning organization in Major League Baseball. And I know I want it to happen fast, and he hasn't been here that long, but just like the beginning of the season, how many times do I go back to that interview on MLB Network where he said, they're young guys. Let's not worry about winning right now. Who cares if we're off to a hot start and in a bad division? We just gotta worry about day by day and essentially being gentle on these young guys because we don't want to hurt any professional athletes' feelings and be too tough on them and have unrealistic expectations that these $1 million athletes would go out there and perform and give it everything they've got. No. We don't want to get into that because why would we? But all right, without derailing, let's get into some of the comments, because you look and tremendous job by everybody that covers the Tigers. I've read a lot of the stuff from Evan Petzel, one of the beat writers for the Free Press. Jason Beck does such a great job. Will Birchfield from 97 Won the Ticket, close personal friend to sound like Stephen A. Smith, but awesome dude. His article on 97 Won the Ticket's website, if you haven't seen that yet, is certainly worth a read. And there's a couple of them, but I think I want to get to this quote from Scott Harris that really personifies where this organization is at and why it's so incredibly frustrating. And as always, if you've got things to add, let me know in the comments if you're live with us on YouTube. But when Scott Harris says, quote, "We're not quite there yet as far as spending at that level because we need to build the foundation of this team to put us in a position to supplement it with some free agency signings and upcoming winners." Aren't quite there yet. I get it. You can't just go out and buy players and expect your team to win. I hear that. I know that. And you could even make the case that the Javi Baez is a perfect example of that. You sometimes can do more harm than good. But this idea of just wait till everything's perfect, and while everybody has to be fully developed, we have to be in a position to win. Sometimes things come unexpectedly, and the month of April that the Tigers had, I would argue, was unexpected. And here we are in late May, about to turn the calendar into June, one game under 500. You're not out of anything yet. Is it an uphill battle? Absolutely. But at the same time, you want your organization, the face of that organization, the GM, to be hungry, to have a little, in vinegar and to go after some things. And it just doesn't feel like that because they aren't quite ready to spend. And it's like Chris Ilitch, we have had a bottom tier payroll well below league average for the better part of a decade. And you just, at some point, you got to be all in. You got to invest the way your father used to invest in this organization. Think of those years when everybody was getting paid, and Major League Baseball, the structure of Major League Baseball, allows and affords the opportunity that if you have a little bit of extra dough, which Chris Ilitch does, I said this in the first Locked On podcast or Locked On Tigers postcast of the day, that he's one of the wealthiest owners in all of baseball, net worth over $3 billion. You inherited all of it. And I don't begrudge him for any of that. I shouldn't have said that. My apologies. Just the point being is you have a very, very capable ownership that just is refusing to spend money. And again, we've said this stat worth repeating. 9 out of the last 10 World Series winners have had a top tier payroll in baseball. It's not as simple as spend and you win a World Series. I'm not saying that, but what is seeming to be pretty much factual based on the data is you give yourself a better opportunity to be relevant with more of an investment. And I think you can do both here. The notion of saying, no, we're not spending anything until we can actually develop our players, develop our guys, and get to a point just doesn't make any sense to me. It's like, again, just waiting till everything is completely perfect until you decide to go all in. This pitching staff was worth going all in for with some supplemental players that could have been big add-ons in the offseason. JD Martinez, Matt Chapman. I know that's a broken record if you've listened to me consistently because I'm always talking about those guys, but something to show the fan base that, hey, guys, we've got the pieces starting to fall into place, in particular in the starting rotation. And if you look in the first month of the season, I know we're history from here, but the bullpen was really, really good. How many games were lost because there just was zero presence on the offensive side of things? Pitching was great. No offense, you lose the game. You're telling me the investment in one or two or anything could have helped that offense? Of course it could have. And the fact that we're just stuck in this mindset of a perpetual rebuild is so disheartening for me, for you, for the fan base. And I'm curious if anybody else feels that way. So I'm going to get off my soapbox here, just going on and on. But it fires me up. It fires me up when you've got one of the richest owners in sports, which is a blessing. It should be an asset. And yes, don't tell him how to spend his money. But every big league team makes money. And everyone is doing well. How about chasing a little bit of success on the field? Because if Detroit has shown you anything, look at the Lions. When there's a winner in this town, everybody backs them. It's as simple as that. And I don't think it's a front runner town by any means. I think it's a passionate town, a passionate city that just is so thirsty for a winning organization, for a winning baseball team like we saw in those glory years, getting to the World Series in 2012, AL Central championships in those time frames as well. And again, if you were around for it, you know how infectious and alive Comerica Park was. We'd give anything for that. And that mindset of just being stuck in this perpetual rebuild, not ready to spend money, just seems like we're pushing it back even further. And it's just waiting and waiting, because by the time all these internal prospects or all these guys that they have that are being developed, it's going to be time for the other guys to go. I mean, Flaherty, Skubal, like those are max players that as of up to this point, while we're filming this live, there hasn't been any signs of a commitment to those two guys. So would love to see something happen, but I'm also not optimistic. But that's all the time we have for today. Appreciate everybody tuning in. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like today's video, share it with a friend. It would be greatly appreciated. We'll be back on the air for tomorrow's game, tomorrow evening, Fenway Park, beginning that 7-game road trip with 4 against Boston, and then 3 continuing the road trip to Dallas against the Texas Rangers, defending World Series champions. So appreciate everybody tuning in. As always, if you missed the live version, catch the audio only version on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts, or of course, watch the video version back on our YouTube page. Thanks so much for tuning in. Tigers win the first game of the doubleheader 8-0, lose the second 10-2. A game under 500, concluding the homestand at 4-2. They're 27-28 on the season. Appreciate you guys so much. We'll see you tomorrow after the game against Boston. Have a wonderful evening.